Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tracy Halley and I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist in private practice. Today's talk is going to be a little bit different. The topic is transpersonal psychology. And what is transpersonal psychology? It's basically experiences that individuals have that explore states of consciousness, if I'm saying that right, consciousness, mystical experiences, out-of-body experiences, perhaps alien experiences, anything under the spiritual umbrella that science itself can't quite measure. So that puts it in a different category. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how I work with individuals who are coming in for these experiences where they need support, but also some of it to them, some of the experiences can be a little bit traumatic in nature. And I am a trauma focused therapist. So, and also a lot of my clients have clinical dissociative disorders. And one symptom of dissociation is having that out of body experience. So it's not uncommon for someone to come in and we start to work through a trauma, like let's say a car accident where their life was in danger, and at the moment of impact or just before the moment of impact, the client reports that they found themselves hovering outside of their body, usually up above the scene, if you will, and they're observing what's happening but detached, like a third person perspective. They're detached from their emotions, and to them they describe it as it's like they're watching a scene from a movie. It doesn't feel real to them, and it doesn't feel like it's their experience, like they're the ones that had that car accident. And so I often see a lot of clients who report out-of-body experiences. But today's video, I'm going to talk more about my own personal experiences since 2023 that fall under the spiritual category. And a little backstory, I grew up in a home that adopted the Catholic religion. So I did the whole shebang: catechism, baptism, church on Sundays, that type of thing. Spirituality was definitely not a topic of discussion. And I didn't even know what spirituality was. I'm 50 years old now. I think I heard about it probably when I was over 30, and definitely more so in the past 10 years. And then when I started having my own experiences in 2023, I've definitely gone down the rabbit hole, and I read books on it, lots and lots of videos. I'm just literally probably obsessed with the topic. And I had to take a step back because, like I said, I was going down that rabbit hole a little bit. And I think sometimes that when you go down the rabbit hole trying to figure out what is real, there's more to reality than what they tell us. We can lose track of, I think, what we are supposed to be doing while we're on this planet in the first place, which is to really experience life in all its ups and downs, to feel all of our emotions. We are human, so we are designed to feel emotions, and I think I did have to take a step back a little bit from just throwing myself and absorbing lots of the spiritual knowledge that's out there. So some of my experiences were started by a set of synchronicities that I had in 2023. And that year leading up to it, I definitely started to explore spirituality. And I wonder if that opened the door, so to speak, or if it, because I was resonating with it, maybe that is what led to me having a lot of these experiences. I'm not really sure. But it started in 2023 with a set of synchronicities, and it had to do with Tinkerbell. It started one day where I don't remember who I was talking to or what the topic was about, but I just remember they said the word Tinkerbell in the conversation. And I remembered thinking, that's strange, they said the word Tinkerbell. And then I filed it in my mind and went about my day. A couple of days later, I was watching a podcast, and in that podcast, a woman was talking about her out-of-body experience, and she was trying to explain what it was like. And she said, when Tinkerbell bebops around, and I kind of froze, and I'm like, did she just say Tinkerbell? I'm like, that's strange. I don't really hear that word very often, certainly not in the same week. And so I said to myself, okay, if this is for me, I need to hear something about Tinkerbell within another week from that day, not a year out. And it has to be something where undeniably I know it was meant for me to see or hear. And if you don't know what a synchronicity is, it's when a situation happens where it goes beyond just coincidence. And that's the best way I can explain it. So I said to myself, I better hear something or come across something that has to do with Tinkerbell that would be undeniable. And then I laughed to myself and I thought, okay, this is so silly. Like that's really going to happen. And I went about my day. A couple of days later, I was at the gym, and they have the treadmills with the TV monitors up above, usually in a row. And I remember looking up, seeing football, and I'm not a sports fan, so I was like, boring. So I look over to the next screen, and it was a different sports, different channel, different sports thing happening. And I remember looking to the third monitor, and the third monitor was a TV screen, all gray. The TV was on, it was all gray. In the top right hand corner, about this big, all in white and only white, was Tinkerbell, right down to her little wand. And I was shook. I was like, oh my God. And the white to me signified spiritual. So I just felt like, oh my God, this is meant for me. And also, when a synchronicity happens, it's confirmation from the universe that you are on the right path. And like I said, what was my path? It was leaning into the spiritual, because I feel like there's something down the road for me related to this topic that will help other people. I just don't know what it is. So that synchronicity set it off. So also in 2023, I had 2 out-of-body experiences, 2 totally different situations. The first one was I was doing a reiki session. And reiki, if you don't know what it is, it's energy healing, where the practitioner will use her physical body, her vessel, to and they put the either hands on your body or they hover up above different parts of your body to manipulate and clear out the negative energy. It connects to chakras, that type of thing. And I had done Reiki off and on in the past 20 years prior, and I didn't experience anything profound. I would always just lay on that table, they're doing their thing, and you just sort of meditate. Sometimes you fall asleep. I do feel better after, but not really sure if it's a placebo. So nothing profound happened until this one day. And I had seen this practitioner before, and again, nothing happened prior. But this day, I remember laying on the table, and it was about 30 minutes into the Reiki session, and I was perfectly still, perfectly alert. My eyes were closed, and I was such in tune with the sounds around me. I can hear the floor creaking when she walked around. I can hear the sound bowls that she was using. I was just really in a place of Zen and really peaceful, and laying perfectly still on the body, on the table with my eyes closed. And I suddenly felt myself moving backwards so I'm laying on the table flat. Here's my feet, and this is my head. I remember moving backwards and then down, like towards the floor, and I had this thought of, why am I moving? Because it was not my physical body moving, and then right back into my body. Wow. I mean, that was quite profound. And then when I told, her name is Caroline, when I told her about what happened after the session, she said, oh yeah, sometimes my clients report that they'll levitate or they'll come out of their body. And I'm just like, I didn't know that was the thing that could happen. So whatever she did, she cleared my energy. And like I said, I had an out-of-body experience. And the part that blew my mind was that I had my conscious thoughts. I could still think outside of my body. So that blew my mind. A couple of months later, again, 2023, I had another out-of-body experience. This one was a little bit more traumatic in a way. So I was at the movie theater with my brother in the afternoon. It was a Tuesday. It was raining out that day. And we're in the lobby. And I remember looking up at the monitors to see what movies were playing. So I remember that. And I suddenly felt not good. I started to feel heavy is the best way I can explain it. So I tap him on the shoulder and I'm like, I'm not feeling well. I need to step out. So I walked over to the pole and I remember leaning against the pole with my standing and my hands on my knees, and I was feeling even worse. So I look over to my right and I saw tables and chairs down the way. And I'm like, I need to sit. So I just remember walking over there. That was one memory, one moment in time. And then in a blink of an eye, I'm somewhere else. And where I was, I do not know. But it was all black. So I was out in space, maybe. And I was being sucked backwards really fast. I could feel it. And I'm being sucked backwards. And so whatever I'm facing, I say my eyes, but my eyes were on my physical body down on the planet, but somehow I could still see. And way off in the distance, like how mountains are so far away, I see this blue, like an aqua blue light, shape of oval. It was a shape of oval. I don't know how big it was because I have no reference, because there was nothing else around. So I'm being sucked backwards super fast. I can feel it. I see instantly that blue thing. I don't know what it was. And then I remember going diagonal, like going down and super fast. I remember a flash of gold to my right and then boom, right back into my body. And instantly I said to myself, did I just die? Like, and it wasn't like I got back into my body and I had to like wake up. I was alert instantly. I knew I had just gone somewhere. And then what happened is I went to move once I was back in my body and I was paralyzed. So this was the part that was traumatic. I think I found out later, after I was taken to the hospital by ambulance that day, that my potassium was low, my blood sugar was high, and I was dehydrated. And I think my bodily organs were shutting down. My brother said I peed my pants right there in the lobby with all these people around. So I do think my body, I think I died. I mean, I don't know. So I was paralyzed for about 15 minutes or so, and I gauged that by the amount of conversations that I heard around me. And I remember them saying, we're going to take you out into the ambulance, but it's pouring rain out. And I could hear the rain, but I couldn't feel it. And slowly but surely, my faculties started to come back on. Interesting piece about that. As soon as I realized I was paralyzed, I thought I had a stroke I thought I had a stroke, and I thought this was going to be my life now. I'm paralyzed. And so I just surrendered to it. I said, this is out of my control. I just have to accept what's happening. And when I did that, I started to get my faculties. I could start to see, I could start to move. One piece I forgot, when I came back into my physical body, right before I got back into my body, I could tell that I was getting closer back into this realm because I could hear my brother and the ambulance, and it was getting louder. So as if they were getting closer. And it was a feeling of like, oh, if you're underwater and you just got to make it to the top, it was like that kind of feeling. And I remember this thought of, I cannot wait to tell my brother what I just experienced, because that was wild. And then when he came into focus where I could see him, he looked like he saw a ghost. So that was probably not the time to explain what happened. So that was my second out-of-body experience. I'm not sure if it was just astral projection or out-of-body, but I definitely experienced something of a spiritual nature. So that happened. And I also started having a lot more dreams that night where I could remember my dreams. And then one day I had a precognitive dream where the dream came in the form of a metaphor. And here's what happened. I was going to a funeral the next day. And, sometimes you see people at funerals, like family or extended family, or just certain people that you really don't want to run into and see again. But it's a funeral, so chances are you're gonna. And so I knew that there would be somebody there at the funeral that I probably wasn't thrilled to see. But what happened in the dream was there was a room, and there was nothing else in this room but a dog. And the dog was kind of rabid, aggressive, that kind of a dog. And in my dream, I'm wrestling this dog to put it back in the room, and I closed the door. Then it happened again. The dog comes out somehow, and I'm wrestling with this dog. It's aggressive, and I put the dog back in the room, and I closed the door. And then it happened a third time. Same exact thing. And I wake up from this dream in the morning, and I'm exhausted. Like I can feel I'm emotionally wiped. And I was telling anybody that would listen, I'm like, I don't know. I just had this dream. It was crazy. I don't know what to make of it, but I'm tired and I'm wiped. And then hours go by, and then I go to the funeral services. And about 45 minutes into the church service part, I scan the room, of course, to see who's there, and I don't see that individual. And I felt a little relief. 45 minutes into the church, I'm thinking, okay, so they're not coming. So I was obviously fine with that. And then they walked in, and they sat, 10 pews in front of me, and I just felt this wave of emotion. I was like, oh. But it's a funeral. So I said to my partner at the time, like, that individual's here, and he said to me, they're just bringing our son here. They're not gonna stay for all the proceedings. It's just the church part. And I was like, okay. So then the second part of the service is we go to the cemetery, and I'm, just paying your respects at the cemetery. And then about 20 minutes into that, through the crowd, I see that person again. And I'm like, oh, feelings come up again. And, we had no interaction. It was just the fact that we were in the same space just made my physical body really, those feels that you don't want to feel. And then I had this thought of, well, surely they're not going to go to the restaurant and mingle with us. So I was like, yeah, this is probably the last part. And I was good with that. Then we go to the restaurant, and out of all the tables in the room, way down the other side of the room, facing me, I see that person. And we're making eye contact now, and I'm like, oh my God. In my feels again. But, I'm an adult, and I just sucked it up and finished the rest of the proceedings, if you will. And it wasn't until a couple hours later, after all of that was said and done, I remember driving, and I was like, oh my God, that is what the dream was about. You know, she symbolized the rabid dog that I really didn't want anything to do with. And I saw her 3 times that day when I least expected it. Maybe I expected the first time, but I certainly did not expect the second time, and definitely not the third time. So to me, that was a precognitive dream where a situation in the future was going to happen, and it came true. So that was pretty wild. So, and there were some other experiences that I've had too outside of work, but in session, in 2 different sessions with 2 different clients in the past 2 years, I also, through telehealth, half of my sessions are telehealth, the other half the clients come in person. But there were 2 times, like I said, with 2 different clients where I'm doing telehealth session with them and I see orbs on their end. The first time it happened, I could see a couple of orbs throughout the session, kind of zipping around the client, around their head, and then going out of frame. And it was distracting, definitely, because that was the first time I saw orbs, and it was not dust. You know, there was an intelligence to these orbs. And then at the end of the session, I remember turning to my right, and I'm talking still to book our next appointment, and I turn back around, I look at the screen, and there were hundreds of orbs. Now they were raining down so fast around the client. I mean, I just froze. I was in awe. I was in shock. I didn't know what to say. So that was wild. And a couple of weeks ago, it happened again with a different client. And this time the orbs were, again, it started off where they were just slowly moving around the client, in frame, out of frame. Not too distracting, because now I know what orbs are and I've had the experience. But at one point in their session, the orbs were, if I'm looking at you and I'm doing telehealth, let's say, the orbs were just, maybe 20 of them were flying past them, like coming in my direction. So I'm like, are they doing that for me to see? I don't really know. But again, I had never had any spiritual experiences or apparitions or ghosts or out of body or anything like that until 2023. There was another day where I was doing reiki with a different practitioner, and it's called bioscala infused. I think bioscala is just a type of energy. I'm not really sure. And I don't see anything in my mind's eye usually when I close my eyes. I have what they call aphantasia. It's all black when I close my eyes. For 50 years, that's how it's always been, until this one day in that Reiki session. She was doing Reiki on me, and about 30 minutes into that session, with my eyes closed, it was like a hologram, and it was coming at me like 4D, all yellow. It was a sacred geometry symbol, very detailed. I can't recall. It was so detailed, but it was all in yellow. And I was like, oh my God, wow. And once my analytical brain kicked on and I'm like, what is that? It went away, of course. And when I told the practitioner at the end of the session, she's jumping up and down because she was like, I was working on your solar plexus, which is the color yellow. Solar plexus is like, I think it's around your navel button. And it was a sign that the healing was working, because what I saw was a yellow sacred geometry symbol. And from what I know about sacred geometry, it's all codes, colors, codes, numbers. I don't know how else to explain it beyond that piece. Again, just confirmation that truth is stranger than fiction, and there's way more happening in this reality, this realm, than what the government's going to tell us probably. But So there are times with sessions with my psychotherapy clients where they bring some of their experiences in and they want to make meaning of it. They want to figure out how is it connecting to their life. Maybe it's their purpose, or sometimes they're traumatized by what they experience. Like I said, having an out-of-body experience where you're hovering up above your physical body as if you're a separate person, if you will, that can be very jarring and very confusing and scary if they don't understand it or have never heard of it. So those were some of my experiences, and I like to link the two. I don't talk about my experiences a lot, of course, with my clients because they are coming in for their session, but sometimes I will bring it in if I feel like it'll be helpful to the client so they don't feel alone, and I can do a little psycho ed about it. So thanks for watching, and I hope you found this interesting. Drop a comment. I'd love to hear some of your experiences, because like I said, and I'll say it again, truth, what is that saying? Truth is stranger than fiction. Have a great day. See you next time.